Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King. And today I'm going to be giving you part 3 of What If Naruto was a direct descendant of Hagoromo. Remember to get this one to 200 likes as usual. Share this to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also, remember if you're new and this is the first time hearing my voice and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King and Anime King 3, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support. A link will be at the top of the description for Anime King 3. So go over there and check it out and enjoy guys. So yeah, without further ado, what do you say we begin this new episode? Start the intro. So the last time we left off, as Naruto saw his friend Sora in trouble, as he went to go and help him, as Sora was clothed in a thick red cloak, as Naruto prayed for his friend to just return back to normal, the energy was siphoned off of Sora into Naruto's body and heal all of his wounds that he got, as both boys passed out. The elder monk then came to them and told them what exactly happened. Naruto had witnessed something while he was asleep, as it was the first time he met the Kyuubi, as the older monk's suspicions were correct now. As he told Naruto that he was a Jinchuriki, Sora had the chakra of a Jinchuriki inside of him. As Sora didn't want this, Naruto promised to him that he would help him get rid of it. For the remaining time, Naruto stayed with the monks, as he started to train and practice even more, going into the art of Fuin Jutsu, as Naruto was able to learn the Cyclone Jutsu from the monk. So with that, things went on, as months, years passed for the boys, as they continued on to train, as Naruto also tried to find out more about his eyes, as he also found out about the Prida path for his Rinnegan, and also the Tendo path, as he could absorb the chakra and also repel it as well. As the time went on, both boys grew, as Naruto continued to make contact with the fox, as he tried to get him to talk to him, and he also wanted to know more about the sage because the fox told him that he will never be like the sage. But the fox was not willing to share such, sensitive information with him. So it took a long while, but the both of them were still not on friendly terms, but at least he wasn't trying to kill him. So yeah, as Naruto ended up leaving the monk monastery. The reason being, all monks one time in their life all went to travel the world and learn what they have to in return. As Naruto had remembered all of his past interactions, he even managed to remove the chakra from Sora. So Sora didn't have that power once again, and his arm had returned back to normal, as the old man had given Naruto the staff of the sage, as Naruto felt the power being drained out of him, but he simply used the Prida path to reverse the flow, so he could hold it and control it, as the thing jingled with him as he walked. As he had made his way towards the desert, his first stop, the hidden sand. So yeah guys, it was basically as we left off. You guys can switch across the page and check it out for yourself, so what do you say begin this new episode? The great sand walls of the hidden sand village rose high above the young monk. He was quite thankful to arrive at the village, but the journey was not so, worrisome. Because that day, the cool breeze, the sand did not get to him because of his Rinnegan. And at night, he could use a fire chakra running through his system to warm his body. As he remembered fondly, when the monk had tested him and Sora affinities, as Sora had wind affinity. But that paled into comparison that Naruto was gifted with all 5 natures in what looked like equal measures, neither of them were weaker than one. That was a feat that should be impossible, but yet Naruto possessed them all, with all of them being equal. The look on the monk's face as a small piece of paper split into 4 pieces, burn, crumble, dampen, and crumble into dust was absolutely priceless. Being the easiest to control, Naruto first started training his fire affinity, as he took to it rather quickly. Not to be outdone as Sora started to work on his training as well, but Naruto didn't get to see the fruits of his efforts because they began a month before Naruto had to leave. But Naruto declined that he did not want to be taught any fire jutsu. He didn't really have an answer when asked why. Especially Sora was confused. He thought learning jutsu would be up Naruto's alley. Honestly though, it seemed to remind Naruto too much of what his life might have been back in Konoha. And that brought back memories to the day that he lost everything. And that was just too painful for the blonde. His Rinnegan abilities were different. They were a part of him, much as the actual eyes themselves, as he felt obligated to learn and understand them better. Even so, he completed the first stage of fire manipulation training, which he didn't even have to use clones to do so, and he was proud of that. The exercise, setting a small fire in the middle of a leaf and controlling the flame so the leaf wouldn't burn outwards, as Sora had used the clones as he was able to split the leaf in half, also completing his training in that department. Standing here now with the sun bearing down on him, fire nature wasn't the best thing. He gave a small smile to the shinobi at the gate, who simply passed his bored gaze over the monk. Once he had deemed that he was a monk, posing no threat to the sand's safety, he handed him a few forms that he could, well, go over and fill out. They were purely liability forms, letting Naruto know that anything that he did wrong in the sand would be punished by the Kazekage, or the shinobi that was nearby that seemed fit. Once they were filled out, Naruto was ushered through, with a group of merchants as well. They looked like they were not used to the sand either, because they looked like they wanted to pass out from the heat. As he felt sorry for a large man wearing a lot of jewels, as he was sweating a lot. Once he was in the village, those thoughts left him, as he gazed at the incredible sight, as he had fond memories of Konoha mixing with the bad, and he knew the village was as beautiful a place as it could be. The forest surrounding the village of Konoha was beautiful and luscious, especially when the morning light break. But compared to the sand, the two places were so vastly different. Where Konoha had tall, modern buildings nestled to some traditional state, the sand was more slightly uniform. All the buildings were built from the same material, a kind of multi-purpose sandstone that looked as solid as any other stone or any other material. But each of them unique as they possibly could, different shapes and sizes. Yet there was something that both villages share, and that was the vibrancy. Shinobis were going about relaxing in boutiques or restaurants, as people were all over, vendors, shopkeepers. It brought a smile to Naruto's face, as people here were still recognized as people. No matter where they live, they were all still humans with the same needs and desires, and it felt comforting. Of course, humans were also rude, as a merchant had rushed Naruto as he hurried by. Ignoring the man, Naruto took around the village for a while, taking in the sights and the friendly people, as he was not used to the nods of head and the smile and, well, the notice that was given to him as he passed by them. He wasn't sure if it was because he was dressed as a monk, or the people were just naturally friendly. That was completely different to his treatment in Konoha, where he might not have even existed. After a while though, he began to get hungry, as he stopped into a small park. There were swings and slides all around, but no children were around. As he took out a sealing scroll from one of his pockets, as he unsealed the box inside, as he realized it was run out of ration that the monk gave him at the start of his journey. He had put them to good use, doing his trek through the desert, but finding drinkable water was a different issue. He briefly wondered what he was supposed to do for money now that he was outside the temple. In Konoha, he received a weekly payment from the Hokage after leaving the orphanage. It wasn't a lot, and he was always overcharged in places, but it was enough to get by. He guessed he would have to do jobs to earn money and food once his ran out. With chakra and chakra enhanced muscles, he could be excellent at many things. He wouldn't even be asking for much. He decided to think about it later, as a door from the other side of the park, there was a building there. The door opened up as children rushed out, seemed to be 2 years younger than him. They must be the San Academy Shinobis, well, students, as he saw them with kunai holsters and shuriken holsters, but their weapons were blunted. As he watched as they play in the park, as this must be recess time for them, he sighed as he realized he would be doing this in Konoha if he was still there. As he watched the children went over to their various friend groups, he wondered what kind of friends would he have had, well, if he had had any, at the village. He didn't miss the casual glances that he was getting from nearby Chunin, but those quickly stopped when Naruto made no move to do anything. A bell then rang after a while, as the children were ushered back inside. Naruto walked past the front of the academy, intent on finding somewhere he can get some food or some work, but he heard some rather heated voice coming from an alleyway, quieting the jingle of his shakijo. With a small pulse of chakra, Naruto walked towards the voices, as he saw 3 boys Probably last year, academy students surrounding a young girl. Probably the same year of the kids that were just playing outside. None of them seemed to notice him, and he didn't hide, he just listened. Please, I have to get back to class, or Sensei will be angry with me, girl said, as she had brown hair that went down to her shoulders. Her voice was timid and full of fear as she bowed her head to the three boys. What's the point, huh? It's not like someone like you can ever be a shinobi. Naruto raised the eyebrow at that. That boy had something about him that Naruto heard a lot growing up. And this feeling, it reminded him of some of the villagers back in Konoha. Yeah, what kind of ninja is afraid of weapons anyway, another one said, as he pulled out a kunai from one of his pouch. But this wasn't one of the blunt ones that the kids were playing with. It was sharp. The girl tried to back away, but she was blocked by the other two. Naruto was appalled by this. Was this how shinobis of the same village treated their own? Maybe we should correct your fear of weapons, a little demonstration, Let us show you how effective they can be. The two boys grabbed her as one of them held out their arm, as the first one made his way forward to the kunai. But before it could even touch her skin, it was pulled from the boy's grasp. When the three of them turned, they saw Naruto standing there, as he was holding onto the kunai in his hand. Did you know the kunai used to be a guardian tool? They were used in royal temples, monk temples alike. A wonderful multi-purpose tool, used for digging. It was the ninjas who turned it into a weapon. Suddenly, a simple item used for gardening had been turned into a weapon to kill. Naruto enhanced his strength to chakra as he bent the kunai. Hey, who the hell are you? The tallest of the three boys stepped forward as he seemed to be the leader. Naruto dropped the kunai as it was bent out of any use of shape. Me? Oh, I'm just a simple traveling monk. You're just a runt, get lost. We're 5th year academy students. Practically, Jenny already. Naruto raised his staff against the alleyway wall. I weep for your village, the day people like you are allowed to become shinobis. The boy growled angrily. He was rather tall, even though Naruto seemed to be older. He was taller than Naruto. As he drew out a second kunai, as he was angry that this nobody was talking to him like this. As Naruto spread his legs slightly into a stance. You're gonna fight me? You're just a monk. I don't even recognize that stupid stance of yours. Naruto simply smiled. This is a starter stance for the Mizuno Mai. I'm not surprised you don't recognize it. I'm still developing it, after all. As his head lowered, he brought his hands up, one in front and one behind. It looked like his entire body was tilted forwards. Both his palms were tilted upwards. In all, it looked like he was almost bowing. It should be enough to show you that a weapon doesn't make one a shinobi. As if that was some kind of signal, the boy rushed forward as he drive the kunai down. Naruto's eyes were closed, as Naruto waited for the last moment to tilt his body out of the way, as one hand grabbed a wrist that the kunai was in. As Naruto pulled the boy along with him, flipping him. Instead of falling flat in his face though, Naruto rolled him in mid-air. As he fell on his back. Throughout the whole maneuver, he was still holding on to the boy's wrist. As he backed off, as the boy got back to his feet, he was surprised, but then turned to a scowl. What kind of pathetic move is that? It didn't even hurt. If that's all they're gonna do then the boy felt exhausted. Like he has been fighting for hours. Hey, what did you... He didn't get a chance, his eyes rolled back as he dropped to the ground. His two friends released the girl immediately as they back away from Naruto, not to want to get into a brawl with someone. Who? Just to call their leader. He'll be fine in an hour. He's just exhausted. Even so, you should take him now and go. I don't really want to fight you. The two boys quickly rushed forward as they grabbed their friend and rushed off, leaving Naruto alone in the alley with the girl. Thank you, Monk-san, she said. As Naruto gave an easy smile, his almost closed eye turned up as he waved. No problem, as the girl took the hint as she moved forward. As she lifted her face, she was rather cute, with shiny black eyes. Matsuri, she said. As Naruto smiled. Well then, no problem, Matsuri. I'm happy to help out. He turned to go, but he stopped. As he turned back towards her. Just remember, a weapon does not make a shinobi. Find your own way in life. Never let others tell you what you're doing is the wrong way. With that, Naruto made to leave, but a small hand grabbed onto his own. Wait, I don't know your name. Naruto turned that same smile, as his eyes could barely be seen. It's Naruto, he said. The girl gave him a look, seeming like she wanted to thank him for what he did in that one look. As people in Konoha always gave him glares and stares. But this was different. How can I thank you, she said. Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder. As he raided her chakra. She had good reserves for a 10-year-old. You don't, he said. Like I said, I was happy to help. And with that, he gave a wave and walked off as his shakujo drinker. Naruto spent the next few days in the sand taking in the sights and doing some odd jobs to get some, well, payment and food. At night he would sleep in a small, out-of-the-way temple at the edge of the village. The kindly master reminded him of Chikaku. Right now he was standing outside a large building. As he walked through the door, he smiled when he saw books stacked everywhere. This was what his journey was about. Every monk chose something they wanted to discover and learn about. Some of them searched about the mysteries of life and existence, others of them taking other routes, diving into human nature and what makes someone tick. But Naruto had chosen to understand the nature of chakra itself, following in its ancestor footsteps, and one day probably surpass him. That was why he needed to travel, information, he needed to gain perspective. He needed to see a broader understanding of the world, to see a bigger picture from as far as possible. He couldn't think of a better place to start than a library, especially one in the ninja village. That chakra is a part of daily life. But he ran into a problem in the era where all of that information was stored. It was a shinobi era. He was not a resident of the stand, or was he a shinobi of their ranks? So that was off limit to him. Of course, if he tried to transform and got caught, he would get punished under, well, suspicion for being a spy. As he sat outside, as he sat on the steps, waiting, watching as a chameleon made its way up the wall, shifting its body occasionally to blend in. They were remarkable creatures, evolution made it, so when they were perfectly still and camouflaged, their chakra was undetectable. He wished he had that ability. It would be much easier to get the information that way. Suddenly, a thought struck him as he got back up, making his way toward the academy. Time skip. Hey Matsuri. Matsuri jumped in surprise. The voice came out of nowhere. As she turned around, she smiled when she saw who it was. Naruto-san. The boy simply chuckled as he rubbed back at his head, his eyes still looking like they were closed. Just Naruto is fine. How are you doing? She beamed, looking very different from the shy and timid person she had been before. Great, those bullies left me alone, they haven't bothered me again. I think they believe that you'll come back to finish them if they do. As Naruto simply grinned back. That's good. Her confidence seemed to drain away as she looked down. Naruto-san, I want to do what you told me. Find my own way to do things without weapons. She shut her eyes as she took a breath. She then snapped them open as she brought her hands in front of her. As she asked, pleadingly, so do you think you can teach me the taijutsu style? As his smile took a sad turn as he patted her shoulder, she already knew what that meant. Sorry Matsuri, that style relies on a special ability of mine that other people cannot do. Otherwise, it's mostly about dodging attacks, while redirecting blows in other ways. Plus, I haven't even finished it yet. It's part of a larger taijutsu style I'm working on. While she looked saddened, there was also a special gleam in her eyes. Creating a taijutsu style was supposed to be one of the hardest things a shinobi can do, and a boy who would look to be a year older than her, who wasn't even a ninja, was doing just that. Oh, okay then, she said. But being the nice person he is. But that isn't the only thing I can teach you, said Naruto. She snapped her head back up, hope sparkling in her eyes. As Naruto wondered how did she flip the conversation around, he was supposed to be the one asking a favor of her. Yeah, I can, as he thought for a moment what he could teach her, before a grin spread across his face. How about I teach you this? He walked towards a nearby wall. As he started to walk up the wall. Wow, that's so cool, she said as Naruto flipped back down. She then became sad again. But you already done so much for me. How can I repay you for this now? Naruto had a small, genuine smile on his face. Well, now that you mention that. Time skip, as Naruto was meditating in a park. As he was relaxing, he couldn't quite, well, explain it, but it felt so much different from his home at the fire temple. Not in traditional sense that it was hotter or it looked different. It just felt different. As he remembered when he told the head monk about the green chakra that he could see in the stones and the plants. It was like he was seeing a new piece of puzzle in the desert out here. He would have to think about that more. This chakra was so mysterious for him to not learn and understand it, whatever it was. One thing he understood though, he could not absorb this chakra with this breathe path. Or either he was doing something wrong when it comes to that, but he just could not, no matter how hard he tried. He was disturbed from his thoughts as he felt Matsuri enter the park. That was another thing. When he focused on that green chakra, yes, he could feel his surroundings. He was quite aware. The park was quite large and he could tell that she just arrived. Naruto-san. Once again he managed to shock Matsuri when he dropped down from a tree that he was meditating on, upside down. Matsuri, I already told you, just call me Naruto. She waved him off, which amused Naruto. It seemed that she has gotten another confidence boost. Look, as she pulled a satchel hanging from her shoulder, I got the scrolls for you, as she had 6 of them. My brother was really surprised when I asked him to get them for me. As Naruto gave her a warm smile, as she sparkled with happiness. Thanks a lot, Matsuri. This means a lot to me, and I couldn't have done it without you. It wasn't entirely true, but it wouldn't be good to disregard her confidence. He created a hand sign and a perfect replica of himself appeared, taking the scrolls. Matsuri gawked at the very solid clone that he made. At the academy they only taught the illusion clone jutsu, but this was solid. Wow, can you teach me that? Naruto chuckled as he started to run through a few hand signs. Not really, it requires a lot of chakra, otherwise it's dangerous. As she watched as he placed his hands over the scrolls as another identical set poof into existence. She didn't seem surprised anymore, making clones of the scrolls. Didn't seem like something he couldn't do. Please, my sensei said I have loads of chakra for my age, the most in over a year. For the first time, Naruto found himself on the other side of the female technique, the puppy dog eye jutsu. And for a young boy with, well, zero experience to the opposite sex, seeing that he was in a monk temple with all males who had passed for years, it was too much. Well, if you really promise to be careful with it and not use more than one at a time until you feel like you're ready. I get Naruto couldn't get it finished as he was tackled to the ground as Matsuri hugged him in a tight hug. Naruto found it nice. He had been hugged before, but never by a girl. It was different. Thank you so much. Everyone's gonna be really jealous when I show them what I can do. Naruto chuckled slightly as she got off of him quickly, realizing how she tackled him. You know, humility. It's a sign of a truly great person. As her blush deepened here and that. Plus, I would appreciate if you didn't go around showing this technique as much as possible. It is not supposed to be known by San Shinobis. If they see you use it, they would get suspicious of where you learned it. I don't think they will believe that a wandering monk was kind enough to teach you it. She looked crestfallen at that. But anyway, he said, how about I show you that first one? You will need all the chakra control you can for the cyclone technique. Time skip. Naruto spent a month teaching Matsuri as he had to be careful teaching the cyclone technique. Even after learning the surface cling technique, she had difficulty. So he started to teach her to walk in water. After that, he was grateful that he could pass on his chakra to other people, as she could barely make 2 clones in a row before passing out from chakra exhaustion. By the end, she was embarrassed, calling him Naruto Sensei, but she got it. They didn't get a lot of time to practice. Between her going to the academy and her responsibility in the orphanage, something the two share in common, it was enlightening. For Naruto to gain a friend, besides Sora around his age and a girl who he talked to. With Sora, it was a competition between them, a rivalry. Even the smallest thing could set the both of them off into a competition. With Matsuri on the other hand, it was almost like a brother-sister relationship, or at least that was how we pictured it, even if Matsuri felt differently. Right now he was sitting in one of the main training grounds inside of the sand village. It was out back into the distance, but he was still in the village. It was one of the few that could grow trees here, in the desert harsh climate. The scrolls Matsuri brought him proved to be very useful, especially the ones about wind chakra, as the sand had the most knowledge about wind nature chakra. Right now he was going over the leaf cutting exercise. He could already do it, but he was focusing on cutting it into a clean line. And he couldn't move on to the next stage in a way. There was no waterfalls in the village. Sand shinobis who want to master their wind nature was taking this somewhere secretive. Even out here as well, he could see the faint hint of that green chakra. But nothing like that was mentioned in any of the scrolls that Matsuri brought him. No sorts of green chakra anywhere. He found references to the life force of the world, but he was sure if that was right. He was sure what he saw, that green thing, it was chakra. And life force was to be something entirely different, right? He was snapped from his thoughts though, as he looked up to see a girl making her way. She looked to be 2 or 3 years older than him. Sandy blonde hair that was pulled into 4 ponytails, as she wore a long white shirt that looked like a dress on her, loosely tied her waist with a light blue sash, as a sandy headband was around her neck as she cocked her head. Hey, who are you? And why are you in my training ground? She asked. As Naruto looked at the girl for a moment, as he narrowed his eyes, not that she could see, because the way his eyes were already narrowed. It was like the old monk, as he could not really see anything, just him squinting, as he got up and bowed. I apologize, he said. I didn't realize this training era was taken. I'll leave you then. As he continued to walk off, his shakijo drinking. The girl just seemed confused at his apology as she watched as he walked off. But when she noticed the split leaves, and also the burned ones, her eyes widened. Wait! Naruto was a bit surprised as a hand wrapped around his arm as she tugged him back, as she held one of the split leaves right in front of his face. You're practicing wind manipulation? Naruto nodded once, his usual smile still spread across his features, as he crouched down and picked up one of the main leaf, as he held it out towards her, as he thought to split, but it was a bit jagged. That annoyed Naruto. He wanted a clean split, even though it was split into 2, it was a bit jagged. Wow, that was really good. Baki sensei told me about this, but he won't let me try it yet. She became suddenly shy as she looked under her feet, as a split leaf fell to the ground as Naruto released it. Sometime I sneak out here to try it, but all I can get is a tiny cut. She then looked at him with a suspicious look. Who are you anyway? I don't recognize you from the academy. I would have remembered you're here. Naruto chuckled as he leaned against a tree, resting his staff against the side. I'm not from the sun, I'm just traveling. Trying to learn all I can about chakra. She blinked at that. As far as she knew, elemental abilities were only used by shinobis. So you're like a monk? Naruto smiled warmly as he gestured toward the staff, as she became a bit embarrassed. I am a monk, he said. This is a part of my pilgrimage. As she seemed rather confused as she looked at him. But don't monks just, pray and meditate and all that? Naruto slipped down the tree to a cross-legged, meditating position. Seeing no reason not to, the girl joined him as she tried to copy what he was doing, but it didn't turn out so perfect. I think you're confusing us with priests. We don't pray. Well, at least many of us don't, he said. Everyone is entitled to their belief after all. Being a monk is more of a way of life than fate. But aren't you a little young? You seem even younger than I am. Naruto gave her an easy grin that, caught her off guard. Because most people would get a bit riley, especially when you underestimate them. Like I said, it's a way of life. There is no age limit, only that you understand what you're committed to. I myself, I'm 11. As she looked at him, that was the age of a 4th-year academy student. My name is Naruto, by the way. As he held out his hand, she reached and took it. Temari, she said. Again he gave an easy grin as she got into a more comfortable sitting position. It's not for everyone, she said as she returned back to her normal sitting way. So, you're interested in wind manipulation? Temari nodded as she picked up a leaf. As she focused, a tiny cut appeared where her finger was. Yeah, my father got me a battle fan when I graduated the academy, so I want to train with it and make him proud. My dream is to be just like Pakura-sama, to be a strong kunoichi and earn a name for myself. As Naruto gave a small eye smile, a certain masked Konoha shinobi sneezed at that moment. That's a good goal. I wish you luck. He got up to leave, but once again she held onto his arm, preventing him from leaving. This made him raise his eyebrow. She looked down for a moment, seeming to be conflicted about what she was about to say. Would you mind helping me? Naruto blinked as he started to laugh, as an irritated look came on her face. Hey, what's so funny, she asked. Just because I'm a kunoichi, I'm not good enough for you to help. Don't you know how hard it is to ask for help from someone 2 years younger than you? Naruto stopped himself, wiped away an imaginary tear as he stood up, fully, as he waved his hand in an apologetic manner. Sorry, it wasn't that. I'm just amazed that you're the second person to ask me that since I arrived here. Of course I'll be happy to offer what help I can. Oh, and the first person to ask my help was a kunoichi, by the way. So don't go using your gender as an excuse to get angry with people. It's unbecoming. As he bent down and picked up a leaf as he handed it to her. He then cuffed her hands with his own, as she blushed. What are you doing? Naruto gave her a smile as her body relaxed slightly. She didn't know why. I want you to try and split the leaf. I'm going to see what you're doing. I can read your chakra through contact. Temari seemed unsure. She heard of sensory ninja before, but never required contact. Even so, she started to channel her chakra into the leaf. Sure enough, the tiniest slice appeared where her finger was, as it made her deflate as she looked at all the split leaf around. Alright, I think I see your problem. She looked up. Her face became a bit red when she noticed he was still holding onto her hand. But he wasn't focused on that, he was looking to the side. You're trying to convert your chakra into wind while it is still in your body. You need to do that at the moment when it is released. Not too much, or little after. Try it again. And remember, keep that in mind. She accepted another leaf as she did what he told her. As Naruto felt her chakra shift into a wind nature before her, leaving her hands into the leaf. Temari's eyes went wide when it split even deeper, 3/4 of the way. It was jagged, but it was a deeper cut than she ever was able to do before. Wow, that's amazing! Just one hint and I improved so much! As she gave Naruto a smile. And this time he became a bit red in his cheeks. He had thought of Matsuri as cute, but Temari was certainly, pretty. He was broken from his daze as Temari waved her hand in front of his face. Yeah, that was pretty good. But you're letting your chakra build up before you release it. That can be quite dangerous when you're shifting the element. Once you convert chakra to a different element, it becomes harder to control because it's not entirely yours anymore. You have opened it up to the element itself. You need to release it as a continuous flow, but this will come great with practice. Temari smiled and nodded. Wait, she asked. What do you mean it's dangerous? Well, just because you perform a jutsu doesn't mean you're immune to the effects. That is no different to the chakra that makes up the technique. It is, unpredictable to control the element, like lightning or wind inside one's body. As Temari nodded at logic, she heard this before, but the way he explained so simple, and it was easy to hear what he was saying. Now, if you want to improve the smoothness of the cut, he picked up another leaf as he cut it quickly, comparing it to Temari's. You need to focus on sharpening your chakra. Imagine like two of the finest swords scraping against one another, sharp and fine. She nodded as she grabbed a few more leaves, as she retreated further into the training ground. As Naruto watched her as he smiled. As he retrieved a few more scrolls that Matsuri had gave him. A few more hours passed as Naruto read the scroll about chakra. There wasn't a lot that he really didn't know, but it was interesting. As he heard cries and shouts of frustration, as they brought a small smile to his lips. As Sora and Temari, both of them were rather loud. He wondered how confrontation would go, but he was interrupted as someone shook his shoulders. He looked up to see Temari, with a big smile on her face as she held up the leaf in front of her. As she then put it in front of him, as she closed her eyes and focused. She then opened up her palms, as the leaf was cut. A bit jagged, but it was cut in half. As Naruto was impressed, her affinity to win must be really strong. I did it, she said. That's wonderful, you improve really quickly. She gave a snort of agreement as she plopped down next to him. Yeah, but I couldn't have got this far without your help, she said. All you have to do now is work on straightening your cuts. And then you can move on to the next step. I'm sure your sensei will be very surprised. Wait, there's a next step? Naruto uses Shakijo as he draw a small waterfall in the sand. Yes, you have to split a waterfall with your sand. Temari gulped as she saw Naruto sketch out a small stick man right in front of the waterfall. This first stage was about flow and precision. The next stage is about maintaining power and a steady flow of stream. That seemed rather difficult as she realized what he was talking about, splitting the entire waterfall. It's getting late, said Naruto. Oh, I have to get home, she said. She got to her feet and rushed toward the ancient training ground before she stopped. As she waved, will I see you again? Naruto shrugged with a smile. Hey, anything can happen. She smiled cutely before running off, leaving Naruto to wonder how we get into these, well, situations. It turned out that Naruto did see Temari again. After all, this was her training ground, and he didn't bother to move. After the first day though, there wasn't much that he could really help her with, besides a few pointers here and there. Steadily, they both improved. One day in their meetings, Temari brought her fan along. Naruto never expected this. It was as tall as her herself, and she had trouble moving it, as Naruto had something new to teach her. Slowly, she got the hang of reinforcing her muscles with chakra, and she could swing the fan around like it was made of paper. Apparently, her father was incredibly impressed when she showed him it, but Naruto told her not to tell her father about him. When Naruto found her father was Kazekage himself, he wasn't entirely sure what to think, but he didn't change his perspective on her, like Temari expected. He thought that everyone was their own person, regardless of who their family or not. As she was so happy, usually people would avoid her, due to her being the honored daughter of the fourth Kazekage. Of course, there was another reason why people avoided her, but that didn't have to do with her father, it had to do with someone else. As Naruto did not neglect his time with Matsuri either, but between her time with the academy and Temari doing missions, he didn't see either of them as much as he wanted to, or they wanted to. So far, the two has not met while Naruto was there, thanks to some plan on Naruto's part. He wasn't sure how some shinobis or someone or the Kazekage would react to him giving pointers to the two girls, especially since one of them was the Kazekage daughter. So he wanted to keep his involvement as quiet as possible, and that meant keeping his, well, involvement by keeping two of them separate, quiet. As currently Naruto was currently reading up on something, a technique for the era to be saturated around you with pure chakra wind manipulation for you to weave the wind without weaving any hand signs, but it required such long, well, intensity training and also large reserves that no one really know how to use it nowadays. As Temari was near practicing her exercise, suddenly, a boy landed in the training ground. As he had brown hair, as he made his way quickly over to Temari, the two spoke about something before the both of them rushed back to the village. Knowing that he wasn't going to get anything done, that he was curious, Naruto silenced his Shakijo as he went after them. Temari and the other boy moved off at, well, shinobi paces, and Naruto did not want to draw attention to himself as he, well, lost them. But then he noticed the streets becoming quieter and quieter as less people move outside. Strangely enough, he found himself alone in the streets. As more people should have been out, the sun was just going down. As he finally reached a small park enclosed, no building. The boy was probably the same age as he was, as he saw a single boy in the park, just sitting there. Curious, Naruto made his way, as the boy had green eyes with red hair. There were strange black rings around the boy's eyes that reminded Naruto of his own whisker marks, and the kanji for love was tattooed on his left forehead. As he was sitting cross-legged, occasionally he muttered something that Naruto could not really make out in a low tone. As Naruto sat alone in front of him, a distance away, neither of them saying anything. After a minute or two, Naruto closed his eyes, enjoying the silence that permeated the area. He had missed this from the temple, unable to find many places with quiet. from the shinobi village. Why are you here? The boy finally spoke. This seemed like a good spot to meditate. It's rare to find such solace in a village like this. The boy looked up. As his eyes were bloodshot, it seems like he hasn't slept in some time. People avoid me. They know better than to come near me. Their blood stain my sand when they do. As Naruto opened his eyes, he saw the red head push his chakra into the sand around them. The time he had spent meditating, he had been absorbing it all in a meter radius. There was something about the chakra that was familiar to him. He could describe this as a less potent version of his own. Why, Naruto asked, as there was a thin layer of chakra covering the boy's body. Mother demands their blood, and doing so, prove my existence. Naruto nodded slowly, like he accepted that statement. You think killing proves your existence? That taking a life increases the value of your own. The redhead stirred as the sand around him started to stir a bit. But around Naruto, it was perfectly calm. If mother demands it, then He gripped his head as he started to wince in pain. As he started to whisper something. The pain then seemed to stop. The boy looked back up with murder in his eyes as he looked at Naruto. As the both of them didn't say anything at all. As the sand around Naruto was just so calm and the sand around Gaara was moving around wildly. Until Gaara grinned. Mother, say that you're strong. She wants to see your eyes. She screams at me to rip open your eyes. As Naruto wanted to know who this mother was, tentacles of sand rushed towards him. But as soon as they came a bit close, they were blown away. You are strong, but you cannot deny mother the desired blood. As he continued to throw attack after Naruto, who just remained perfectly still. You know, I don't even know your name, said Naruto. The boy paused. Gaara, he said. Well, I am Naruto Uzumaki. Could you please stop attacking me now? Gaara started futility in his actions somehow, because nothing he was doing could even faze the blonde. It unnerved him because the only person who did not fear him like this was his own father. The two had that same calmness while in his presence, while other people feared him. But Naruto was rather calm entirely, while his father actually was cold and wicked towards him. Why do you not fear me, Uzumaki? Asked Gaara. What reason do I have to? Naruto asked. Gaara blinked in surprise. Naruto was right. None of his attacks even come close to hurting him. How are you so strong? As Naruto had a smile in his face, but his guard was up. This boy was not completely stable. He may have been kind of wanting to help the boy, but Naruto wasn't an idiot. That's a difficult question to answer. Some might say it's due to circumstances out of my control, or maybe it's because of my blood. I like to think it's because I train hard to better myself. Gaara shook his head. No. What drives you? What allows you to be so strong? As Naruto looked down and blinked, Gaara used the opportunity to try to attack him again, but none of his attack got through. I want to understand, said Naruto. What do you mean? Gaara said as the attack stopped. I wish to understand the world, people, chakra. I want to learn all these things. To do so, I have to grow stronger. To understand people is to understand the world, and it's through that you can reach peace. I don't want to see the people who are close to me get hurt. So, I need to move forward and get strong enough. I need to understand. Gaara looked down at that, his ear, shutting his eyes. Prove it to me, he said. Prove to me that your method of gaining power is superior. I fight because I refuse to let my existence be erased. Now prove it to me. Fight me, Uzumaki. The sand around Gaara started to draw together. No Naruto understood as sand started to form into some strange creature. Gaara was a Jinchuriki. Like him, flowing through the sand with the same chakra there that him and Sora once possessed. But it was not as thick as the Kyuubi chakra. As Naruto sighed, he was looking into a mirror of what he might have been. He could only imagine what happened to Gaara to make him this way. Obviously, his vigil was affecting him. Probably this mother he spoke of. I don't intend to fight you, Gaara. As Gaara started to laugh, drool dripping from his mouth, as his features started to change into a strange raccoon. As Naruto knew that he was looking at the vessel of the Ichibai Tanuki, the One Tail. It's not your choice. Mother wants your blood. Gaara started to release the Biju chakra. Naruto was doing his best to absorb, but he knew that it was only a matter of time before this was investigated. So he had to make this quick. Very well, I'm sorry. Naruto raised a hand as Gaara's tail started to sway behind him. For the first time since arriving here, Naruto opened his eyes fully. But Gaara wasn't really paying attention. One of the rings around his ripple eyes seemed to contract a bit, as a rush of chakra went off. Almighty. Push! He said in a quiet tone, as Gaara was slammed by an invisible force. As his feet had stuck to the ground by chakra, and the sand that was holding it, but the sand off his body was blown off. Universal pull, Naruto said. The only thing that came to Naruto was Gaara. The sand cloak was left behind twitching. As Gaara was confused and shocked, as he was being held up by Naruto with one hand. As Naruto dropped Gaara, as Gaara looked up at him with fright in his eyes, as he was scared. He could not understand what happened. As Naruto tapped him with his staff right in his forehead, Gaara couldn't move. His whole body was paralyzed. He couldn't even speak. Even so, there was sheer terror in his eyes as Naruto walked over. I'm not going to hurt you, Gaara, but at the same time, I cannot allow you to hurt me. Don't worry, this paralysis will wear off in an hour, or I can release it if you calm down. Gaara has never felt so vulnerable ever in his life before. Here this boy could end his life in less effort than it would take to scrape dirt off your sandal, and Gaara didn't even have his sand armor to protect him. As Naruto didn't wait for a response, he tapped Gaara on the forehead with his staff. Why? Said Gaara as he was able to speak again as the sand quickly came around him. Because I share a similar burden. And I know, better than anyone else, that you don't deserve any more suffering. The two were interrupted as Sand Shinobi dropped down, looking at Gaara with fright and suspiciously at Naruto. Gaara, you will go see your father immediately. Gaara looked at the man for a moment before his eyes widened. As he looked towards his shoulder where Naruto rested his hand on his shoulder, the sand fallen away. His automatic defense had even quivered at the approach, and Gaara felt human contact. He looked at Naruto with an amazing look. Even the shinobi was shocked as well. Gaara then got to his feet as he walked off without saying anything, unsure what to say as he went towards his father. The man was glaring at Naruto at the moment, the shinobi, as he had a white veil over half of his face. After a moment though, he nodded as he gestured after Gaara retreating form. I believe the Kazekage would also want to speak with you. Naruto gave a calm nod and gestured for the man to lead the way, which he did. The two moved to the sand at a rather normal pace, as the Jonin glanced back at him a few times to check if he was still there, or for some other reason. As Naruto was thinking what the Kazekage might talk to him about, or what he wanted to say to the Kazekage. He may be a monk, but he knew if a Kage suspected someone of being a danger to their village, he would not hesitate to deal with the problem. Sadly, he knew that applied to Hokage as well. One of the reasons why his thoughts on Konoha were so mixed at the moment. So, why did you wait so long, Naruto asked. The shinobi looked at Naruto, as he seemed to ignore his words. You know, when my chakra touched Gaara's, I could sense everything his hand was connected to, including you hiding up on the rooftop. It had been rather odd at first, as Naruto could sense everything, as his connection was linked to the Ichibai Jinchuriki. I don't know what you mean, the Jonin said. Naruto ignored the comment. He definitely felt the man hiding up on the rooftop, since Gaara started to transform. I wonder, were you under orders not to interfere? Or maybe you were curious. It's a rather fundamental desire for humans to know more. Again, he got no reaction from Jonin as he went through the streets. Or perhaps you were simply afraid. Although of what, I'm not sure. That time Naruto got a reaction as the man's hand twitched. Learning body language has been taught to him at the temple. It was a rather useful skill, to try to find out someone's motives. And also, if you want to know what someone is feeling, you have to annoy them a bit. As Naruto didn't know why they were taking this slow pace, he could easily hop along rooftops as Shinobi could. But he did not say anything as he just continued to walk with the man, as he never been around these parts of sand before. That was another thing. Even when the civilians went in, Shinobis would still be around, but no Shinobis was around. No one at all. My name is Naruto, by the way. The Jonin looked at him for a few seconds. Baki, he said. It was more like he grunted it. It was clear that he did not enjoy Naruto's company. Naruto raised eyebrow, so this was Temari sensei. As they made to the largest tower in the sand, as it was bearing the kanji for wind, this was Kazekage's tower. As Naruto followed Baki inside, up the stairs, and through the halls, they were stopped outside the door by a young pretty assistant. As she looked at Naruto before motioning towards his staff. No weapon in the Kazekage's office. She reached out to take it, but Naruto pulled back his hand as Baki and the other shinobis in the shadows tensed. I wouldn't touch her if I were you. She's a bit temperamental about who holds her. The assistant looked at him for a moment. As Naruto raised his staff against the wall, he gave them a warning. What happened after that was their concern. As he was patted down so he wasn't carrying any weapons, as he rolled his eyes. Well, no one could really see. You can go in now. Despite the annoyances, Naruto smiled at the woman as he made his way in the room. As the place was rather nice, a violet color, as it was painted, and photos on the wall. A large ornate desk was in the back of the room, as a middle-aged man was behind it, looking at Naruto with curiosity. He had rusty, brown hair that spiked out. There was no mistaking the resemblance between him and Gaara. The revelation that Gaara was Temari's brother came as a surprise. She never mentioned her brother. Passing those thoughts for now, Naruto went to the center of the room, as he bowed slightly. Kazekage-sama, I'm honored you called for me. As the man took in Naruto form, he seemed somewhat satisfied, as he turned towards Baki who was in the corner of the room. You did not mention the boy was a monk. Baki suddenly gulped. Apologies, Kazekage-sama. The Kazekage turned back to Naruto. What's your interest in my son? As Naruto, blinked at the bluntness in the question. This wasn't a meeting between two Kages or daimyo. As far as the Kazekage was concerned, Naruto was nothing more than a monk with some interesting abilities. I have no more interest in your son, Kazekage, than I do with any other person can exchange light conversation with. The Kazekage raised eyebrow. His words were smooth, and he could not take a line near the words. Why did you approach him in the first place? As Naruto continued to smile, I saw a boy my own age in a park. Like any other inquisitive person, I want to know why he was alone. As, despite his words being quick and responsive, they were quite vague. Would you have approached him if you had known that he had killed multiple people? As Naruto did not bat an eye at that. It's unfortunate for someone leading the killing, but condemning them before you even know the reason why is just as bad as you allowing him to perform the deed himself. The Kazekage raised his eyebrow. It was slight, but it was a jab at him not being able to, watch over his son. But the way that Naruto spoke, it just hid the words quite well. Anyway, from what I saw, Gaara can act in self-defense. From what he sees as a threat, am I right? Upon the Kazekage not answer, Naruto took that as a yes. Plus, I don't believe you can truly blame him. I'm sure I would be tightly whined if I had a 8th story Tanuki whispering into my ear all day. At that, everyone in the room tensed. And what would you mean by that? Naruto chuckled slightly. Please, Kazekage-sama. I may be young, but I'm not naive. This is not my first encounter with a Jinchuriki. That wasn't a total lie, at least. Sora was technically one. From his attacks and seeing that we're in the desert, that makes him likely the Ichibai Jinchuriki. The Kazekage seemed impressed for one so young to figure out that so quickly was remarkable. And knowing this, make you see him no different than Kazekage acts. As far as I understand, drawing a sword seal on one's stomach does not turn him into a kunai. The Kazekage leaned forward in his chair. I suppose you're right, young monk. As Naruto nodded in a show of appreciation, and that made the man, rather amused and angry. If I may, Kazekage. After a few seconds of staring, the man nodded. Why has nothing been done about Gaara's condition? There was silence in the office as the man seemed to weigh up his response. That, or he just enjoyed making people wait on his answer. Neither would surprise Naruto from given what he saw so far. Gaara is a shinobi of this village. He will continue to be so until his usefulness as a weapon ceases to protect his village anymore. Other than that, I have no reason to tell you anything, monk. You may be a spy, most likely from Konoha with that fire emblem on your robes. You are only standing here out of my grace and curiosity. Many have never received the honor or never will. As Naruto just continued to smile, outwardly unconcerned about the information, inwardly he was rather bored and back in front. Despite being changed by the temple, he was still 11-year-old, and politics did not really, interest him. I am from the Fire Temple, said Naruto. I wear this symbol to show my home, like any other village would do their headband. The Kazekage flicked his wrist. In any case, I want you to stay away from my son. If my shinobis ever see you approach him, I will not hesitate to have you removed from my village. Understood, monk of Hainokuni. As Naruto tilted his head, smiling a bit more, the shinobis were unsettled how someone so young could be so, unconcerned standing in front of a Kage like that. But guys, be in subscribe right here. For the next part of this, to do, like, subscribe, comment down below, turn on bell notifications, stay posted. But I'm off for now. See you guys soon. Peace.